Welcome to the Homeschool Together podcast. Where one working mom and a stay-at-home dad help you navigate the nuts and bolts of the growing and dynamic world of homeschooling.
With a focus on early learners, like me.
All the ins and outs of building and maintaining your homeschool life.
Homeschool.
Find out tips and tricks to make things like this easier.
I'm reading.
And ultimately, enjoy educating your kids. And what's that last thing?
Have fun together. Did I do good, Daddy?
Yeah, you did, sweetie. Good job. Bienvenue, friends, especially our Canadian friends who are tuning in. We got a special one for you today. But before we go into that, head down into the show notes and click on something. Just click on anything. Click on anything and subscribe, support, do all the fun things. Join the Facebook group, leave a post, tell everybody, leave us a review, whatever it might be. Feel free to support the podcast.
I'm just going to apologize to Lena Warner, our interview today, and anyone else out there.
Did I not deliver the French?
I mean, it was an accent of something, but
Midwest French accent.
Yeah, it was that. Thanks everybody for supporting the podcast. We appreciate it. Tell your friends, subscribe on YouTube. We're doing curriculum reviews every week, so check those out, especially as we come up into the fall and you're making some curriculum decisions. It's a great time to use that curriculum resource selector guide and tell your friends about it. If you need to pick up curriculum, it's a great way to support the podcast.
So we are embarking on a bunch of interviews and we are currently stacking them up. So you're going to see a lot of interviews coming out over the next few weeks. And so all you first-year homeschoolers, all you new thinking about possibly homeschooling people, we're going to have a ton of interviews coming up in over the next 2 or 3 months. So strap in. We're going to have a lot of fun. Today we had Lena Warner. Lena is not necessarily a first-year homeschooler. She's been doing it for a couple of years, but she showed us all how to balance a large family and doing homeschooling. She's French, from France, transplant to Canada, and she's been able to find the perfect balance of her family using multilingual. She's teaching French, she's teaching English, she's using curriculum from France to help do all her French language arts, and it's just amazing, fun story about how she balances everything. It was really eye-opening for me. It really told me basically to stop complaining.
Well, yeah, I think it's really great. She has kids age 7 all the way down to age 1. And she's also dealing with the fact that her husband works shift work. So they don't run on the same schedule every week. She had to, basically this whole episode is about adapting your homeschool to the needs of your particular family and not saying we have to school 5 days a week and we have to, Mondays we always have the same schedule. That didn't work for her family. Homeschooling first thing in the morning didn't work perfectly for her family. Her kids want to play and they have a different rhythm than that. So I think this is a great episode about finding, just what works and, not caring if it doesn't look like somebody else's homeschool.
No, absolutely. And sometimes she's having to deal with, the shift work, I think, was a big challenge for her, really crafting her schedule around her spouse's work schedule, and the difficulty of coming off of night shifts and having your spouse be sleeping during the day and figuring out how to balance your homeschooling. And, we all know how loud kids are, and all the challenges around that. It was just a really eye-opening experience, of realizing that homeschooling doesn't have to be very rigid. And we always talk about that. It doesn't have to be public school. It can be whatever works best for your family. And this is, I think, a prime example of working within the constraints of what your family can do. She's had some challenges finding community. She's had challenges getting out. And it was such an amazing discussion, and really kind of demystified a lot of homeschooling, those bugaboos that we always think about, and she's able to make it work. I know it's a challenge. So let's go ahead and hop into talking to Lena Warner.
Lena, thanks so much for joining us from Canada today.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me.
Well, tell us a bit about your family. Let's get into it.
So I'm from France and I live in Canada, and my husband's from Vancouver.
And that's a cat. And that's a cat. People can't see
And that's
online.
a cat that just climbed on me. So I'm from France. I've been here for 12 years, 13. I stopped counting. And he's from Vancouver. And we moved across the country 2 years ago now, so we're in New Brunswick
Mm.
on the opposite side on the East Coast. And we have 400 billion kids. Um, no, we have 4 kids. My eldest is about to be 7. My second is 5.5. My third just turned 3, and my fourth just turned the 1.
Oh,
So
busy lady.
they're all pretty close in age. And we have a cat and 7 chickens. And a lot of craziness. And we homeschool.
So tell us a little bit about that kind of that journey to homeschooling. You have all these kids, what was the drive? What was the inspiration? How did you get to that?
It's funny because I can't remember where it started. Everybody asks me, is like, I can't remember. I think I saw a YouTube video of like day in the life of a homeschool. I was like, homeschool, that's a thing. I had never thought about it before, or I knew a homeschooler growing up, but vaguely, I had no opinion on it. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's cool. And I think I was pregnant, or my first was a baby, a newborn. I was like, huh, I like this idea. Um, at first, because of the schedule, my husband's a shift worker, so he works 4 days, he's off 4 days. We
Mhm.
don't function on a 7 days week. And because I'm French, I go home as much as I can and I go for weeks at a time and it costs a fortune. So you're not going for a week of spring break or whatever. And so I thought, oh, this is great. We can school when he's working, we can be off when he's off, we can travel freely and see family and whatever. And so mostly I think it started with that. And then it was, oh, I'm French. We do school differently. This way I can bring aspects of both that I like into it and use both languages and mix and match, which it ends up being very much what we do. But that was the main points at first, like, oh, yeah, I can tailor this to the kid. I remember selling it to my husband saying, like, if she's into dinosaur, we can do math with dinosaurs and spelling dinosaurs and blah, blah, blah. And like, think of how cool. And he thought, yeah, sounds cool, but I like my days off. Can she be in school? But he wasn't very convinced at first, but he got there eventually. And here we are. And then it just happened from the beginning. I said, okay, we're going to homeschool. And my family was like, yeah, sure. And we did it.
So you had this video. Did you have to do any research when you finally started homeschooling when your oldest was maybe like 4 or 5 years old? Like what did you have to do research and learning how to do that?
I think even before that, I spent years watching people's videos on YouTube of like, this is how we homeschool, like random stuff in every direction. And what I thought I would do then is not what I ended up doing. Like I remember researching curriculums and whatever and saving pages for in a few years that I never ended up going back to. But it's funny because I never ended up like learning much about Charlotte Mason or all those things. I was just like watching videos of what people are doing. And then a few years later, I heard about unschooling and I thought, huh, how great. What a concept. I went deep into that research wise of, oh, what does that look like? What does it do? And trying to sell it to my family. I was like, oh, great. Like, and it made sense to me. I was like, yeah, like if you like learning, you will learn, you know, and if you're guided into it. It didn't really end up doing what we're doing. We're very eclectic, but not particularly unschooly anymore. But for the first few years, we very much had an unschooly philosophy of like you're learning through life, you're learning so many things. Um, and then I can't remember. I think you just get influenced by so many people of, oh, I'm using Build Your Library, I'm using that, and then you just look at everything until something seems to fit. And I still can't say for sure we have what fits, but we're going through it. But yeah, there's been hours of research. To answer your question plainly, hours of research.
I
Hours
know
of research.
nothing about
No,
this.
no, of
Nothing.
course not. So you're in Canada and we're in the United States. A lot of our listeners are in the United States by the data of the
Right.
of the
That's what
of
fires
our
up.
downloads. And so what is it different between what's homeschooling like in Canada? Are there different requirements? Do you have to register with the state? Are there reporting things? Like what type of hoops do you have to jump through in Canada?
I think overall it's a lot easier than what it sounds like in the States. For the vast majority, Quebec is a complicated one from what I understand. Every other province, basically you say, hi, I'm homeschooling, bye. I don't think any of them, none of them have testing uh, or particular requirements. BC was the same. You just sign a paper and you say, hi, I'm homeschooling. New Brunswick is the same. A couple of them you have to be like, here's my plan, but it's very loose. Yeah, it's very easy. You just say hi and bye, signing your life away of like, yeah, I'm still doing this every September, and that's it. Oh, there's no funding. Alberta has funding, but I think it's the only one basically. And then yeah, you're on your own.
So you sound like you've tried a few different things. You dabbled in a little unschooling, and you're now kind of eclectic. You looked at lots of curriculums. Like, were there specific challenges that led you to switch styles, or were you really thinking like, for me, I mean, just speaking personally, I'm like, ooh, that looks cool, and so I just kind of switch without really having. I'm not like disgruntled with the thing I was doing, but I just like, ooh, new, shiny. Is it like that, or is there
Everything is
reasons?
new and shiny,
Okay.
and everybody sells it so well to you. We're doing this and we love it. It's like maybe I love it too. And this is why I have 45 curriculums on my drive. Um, no, we try a
Curated.
lot of
You've
things,
curated curriculum.
highly curated. You have no idea. Um, no, my kids are pretty cool about it because they like everything and I like everything, so we can't settle. It's like it's all cool. Can we do it all? And we cannot do it all is the problem. But we try, and that doesn't go very that you know. But we try to do everything. We have SCI for science, and we have Blossom and Roots, and we have just everything on Earth, and we like it all. So that's the biggest problem. And I don't know if it's the same for you, but for unschooling, I love the concept. I truly believe in it. I have a hard time letting go of
Hmm.
having at least some bare minimum, some scheduling. I need the routine. I need the paper. I need to follow because otherwise nothing happens. It's the reality of like
Hmm.
they have so many things they want to learn, but for me to facilitate that, I need the curriculum. So
Hmm.
it's more of like, okay, I'm trying to use your interest. Like we're doing Blossom Emerald Space because my son loves space. So it's sort of like, okay, you pick the subject, but we're using a curriculum to actually make it happen, or it will not happen if it's just me.
No, I
I don't
so
have the I don't
understand
have the
that.
bandwidth. I don't have the creativity. I don't have it.
Well, there's so much research, right? I mean, that's why curriculums exist, and we're always telling people because I think people get this like guilty thing when they don't do every piece of the curriculum. I know I feel this. Like I need to check all the boxes, right? But really, it's like, hey, even if it's just guidelines, at least it gives you something to start from. Because those unschooling parents, I mean, wow, that's like a lot of research. You're basically asking to, create a whole curriculum yourself, and
On the fly too.
Right. And you may do all this work and then your learner may be like, oh, that was last week. I'm interested in this now. You're like, oh,
Yeah.
just did all this work.
Well, that is
So
like our library is provincial size, so
Mhm.
books are all over the province. So it could take 3 weeks when you order a book for it to come in, which we're super lucky. Like there's 50 libraries or whatever, and they're all connected, and you can borrow from any of them, and it comes to you. But it can't be like, Mom, I want to learn about, I don't know, bees. It's like I can't just show up at the library and get 20 books on the subject. They're going to be all over the province. I have to order them. Like the whole logistics of it is madness. But I can't remember if it was you that said you own the curriculum doesn't own you.
mhm.
Mhm.
And I keep on telling it to people, like, because it's been my mission of like, okay, I don't have to do everything. You can let go of some stuff
Yeah.
and just use it. And very much like you for Build Your Library Zero, the first few months we really followed it, and then it went completely like freestyle,
Yeah.
following the concept, following the order to an extent, and using the books, but completely freestyle of like, this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
I remember
And I
being like, I
still
haven't opened the
appreciate it.
curriculum in weeks. 100%.
Right. I
Because
still
it
think it's
inspired
very
me to
worth the
get to
30
that point. It
bucks.
gave me the confidence. Oh yeah, yeah. It
Mhm.
gave me the
Yeah.
confidence of like going for it and doing my own thing. But yeah, after a while, I was like, oh, I haven't actually looked at the PDF in a while.
So, you've used Build Your Library, you've used Blossom and Root you're talking about. So how are you spanning those? Because you have such a varied range of ages. I mean, obviously your two littlest are just tagging along. But what's your plan going forward? Are you thinking you're gonna, I mean, right now you're just sharing between your two oldest and then eventually you'll like include everybody
I
or
have plans, and then every 2 weeks they change because reality catches up with me. We didn't fully finish Building Library Zero. We started when my son was 4.5 and my daughter was 6. And we did a lot of it. We're missing Africa basically is what it is. Um, and they love it. But at this point, I'm like, okay, I don't want this to be our main tram. Like, we're still going to do a country as we go. We'll always have a country going. But I like doing that with them, and I would like to do it with the younger two when they're older. So that's a distant plan. And then I thought, okay, we're going to do prehistory. We're going to do level one, but my 5-year-old's not there. He's not there. He's not going to get much of it. I have 4 kids. I can't do this 20 times. So I figured, okay, when we do his prehistory, he has to be old enough to get something out of it because I'm not going to do it 4 times. So we tabled that, and I was like, okay, so what are we doing if we're not following the
Yeah.
regular zero prehistory one? And so yeah, we're still figuring that out. We're diving into Brave Writer this year, actually, is the
Oh,
plan.
cool.
Because my eldest she's gonna be 7 in a few weeks, but she's pretty good in reading. I don't like saying advanced because it means nothing, but she reads like fourth grade level books for fifth grade level, and so she's ready for darts for those projects. He's gonna be a tag along, which I don't like, but it's so hard because you're like, oh, either you dump it down to the 5-year-old level,
Yeah.
and I feel like I'm never challenging my daughter enough,
Hmm.
or he's the tag along. And so
Mhm.
I'm constantly going back and forth of like, do we do something for him and I try and make it harder, or do we do something for her and he's just catching up? But so right now it's gonna be for her. She needs the challenge. Last year everything was too easy. It was like, okay, yeah, Zombie Library Zero. It was exciting, but it was never like, ooh, this is such new information and it's like
Hmm.
blowing my mind or whatever. So I feel like this year it has to be about her. But it's hard. And I can't even think when all four of them will have to be in the chaos. I was like, what are we doing?
And we're going through that right now with our Trekking the Globe that we just started. Um, and we're trying to, level it up for our oldest. And it's not that that's hard or anything, but you're right. We're starting to, as we get into it, we had a plan, as you said, a good plan. And then 2 weeks later, it kind of starts to change.
Hmm.
And we're going to be adapting, I think, over the course of, the 30 something weeks that when we do it. And we're going to see how, what works and what isn't working, maybe something we may have to layer in new. So yeah, doing those, like bringing two kids that are kind of like
Yeah.
shooting, the curriculum shoots the middle between the two of them, or maybe is targeting the lower one. Yeah, how do you level it up? And I think that's a challenge that a lot of parents are
It's
having,
hard.
especially with multiple kids. So you're almost looking at, you're going to break it into two groups in some
It's
respect.
sort of how I look at it now because it
Yeah.
feels like it makes sense. We'll see if we can get some stuff to do all together. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't even want to waste any brain space on trying to figure that out because I'm sure I'll be wrong.
Yeah.
Whatever we end up doing.
Yeah, I think there's a really hard, right? You've got homeschooling
Yeah.
it by its very nature is kind of involves the whole family. Never happens in a vacuum. So it involves all of you, but curriculums are usually written for a short age range. And the ones that are written for the whole family are so loose it doesn't give you enough prescription to really do something with.
Yeah.
So you're in kind of it's a weird space where you probably will have to take a couple and like merge them at
Well,
some point.
and it's almost like an old problem that they had with like the one room schoolhouse where you
Yeah.
would have multiple age levels. Now it's all just chunk 1 year at a time and everybody's on the same thing. We're kind of like having to rediscover those same challenges that maybe they had 100 years ago or something, or small schoolhouses.
I think about that after like the one schoolroom of like, oh my goodness, what did they do? But I've noticed this year I did a lot because we've been doing Blossom and Root space science, which is for kindergarten, and it's an easy one compared to the other science they have. Like that one is really kindergarten. Uh, and I kept on being like, oh no, I'm not asking you, kid number one. I know you know the answer. I'd like to hear your brother answer this. And I kept on doing that. I thought, well, why is she there then? Like, why am I doing this if at no
Mhm.
point I'm asking her the question because she already knows the answers? And that's where I was like, oh, we've been doing a whole lot of that. Like, I need to do something that's a challenge for you where you're the one thinking and you know trying to come up with the answer and understanding and using your judgment and everything. Like, okay, we need to do something that's tailored for you. And my son, my second, he catches on to a lot, like more than you think, because he's got ADHD and unique and quirky. So you think he's not paying attention, and then he actually understood faster than my 7-year-old for what's
Mhm.
happening in the book or who's what's who's doing what and stuff. So it's like, oh, you are getting a lot more than I think you are. So that's why this year the plan is to do some literature studies by Brave Writer. And we're gonna do their writing program. I don't know if you're familiar with them.
Yeah,
The
I've
first one
heard
is called
some,
Jotted.
but
The first
yeah,
one is
take us.
called because everybody hears about the darts, the quills, the arrows, the novel studies, right? But there's also a writing program, the age match. So the first one is Jotted Down for age 5 to 7, and
Mhm.
it's very fun, creative writing projects. And that one we're gonna do all together, and I think it'll be perfect for their age. because it's gentle, it's fun, like making mailboxes that you attach to your doors and writing notes to each other for a month. And like that's the creative writing is you're writing letters to each other and stuff like this. And then the darts is technically for kids 8 to 10. So for that one, we're taking a bit more a jump, but I I think it's appropriate for where she's at, so I'll be fine hopefully. The plan is to definitely ditch the parts that's like, yeah, we're not doing that. That's beyond our scope, and then just take the rest.
So when you're teaching, maybe more nuts and bolts outside of the curriculum discussion, how do you manage the 4 kids? And in my, you saw the questions. It's a Law and Order. These are your options: Law and Order. You have to be Miss Frizzle, or do you just survive until 5?
It's a mix because when my husband off, it's a very different story. You're like, take the little ones, go away,
Yeah.
take them somewhere else. Um, that makes it easier. The cat has made an appearance again.
Yes.
Um, it's organized chaos or unorganized chaos, and I don't know that I have an answer. I Every day is different. It's basically what it comes down to. Some days the baby is like doing her thing and she's chill, and we can get through a lot of math and writing and reading and whatever. Some days she's just screaming on my lap, but it's like this is not gonna happen.
Mhm.
So I don't know. I'm still figuring out. We've just started our new schedule uh of like what we're doing now because we just switched level basically for math and French and reading and stuff this week. So we're figuring out a new schedule and like, yeah, this is not working because my plan was to do the core stuff in the morning and in the morning she's like, yeah, no, I'm one, I want attention. I have things to do and watching you do math is not one of them. So I'm probably gonna have to switch to doing more stuff at nap time. I don't know. It's hard. We do little bits. I'll be like, okay, like they're busy for a second. I'll take my second and we'll sit down and do his math, and then I'll send him his way, and then I grab my daughter. She's quite independent with her work because she can read and she understands what she has to do. So I can give her a lot of stuff as they do this. I'm trying to not do that too much because I feel like I should be doing it with her more and guide her more, even though it's easy to be like, here, do your math. Um, but yeah, I grab a kid when they're available and everybody else is quiet somewhere else. Basically, it's like go play with your sister so I can use your brother. Go play with your so I can use And then yeah, it's a season of life.
No, I remember using the nap time when I had my youngest when she was 1, using the nap times almost exclusively to do
Yeah.
most of my core work, like math and reading. That was like, sweetie, we got an hour, we got to do it. This is the
Yeah.
time we have to work.
What's hard is I need the nap time.
Yes,
Yeah, word. Hmm.
I know.
That's the problem is like I need it's not even napping. I need the quiet for my sanity. Like I need quiet.
When I get time off and like I get a couple days, it's like a monastery. Like nobody talks,
Yeah.
no words. The dogs are quiet. I'm quiet. Nobody's speaking. You
So
wouldn't even know
nice.
anyone was in here. I know.
Yeah, you gotta pick and choose for your sanity. Like, okay, are we
Yeah.
using nap time to do all this thing, or are using that time to be quiet? It's like, and they need the quiet too. I try to send them to quiet time. Uh, my 3-year-old falls asleep a lot, so that's a problem because she can't nap anymore, or she doesn't sleep at night. But hey, I need the quiet, and so sacrificing those 2 hours to do all the things that we can do for the rest of the day is a problem,
I know.
which is why I try to do the pick and choose and grab a kid as they go. Like, okay, here, let's do your reading lesson. Okay, off you go, and basically it's what I do all day. Of like, oh, we have 5 minutes, let's get it done.
Yeah. Well, and just wait till activities and things start, because then we're kind of trying
Don't
to
even.
deal with that where it's like, I don't know, well, let's do this on the road. We got to take her to practice. Okay. And
It is a problem.
We
it
did some
just gets
car
worse.
math last year, like during gymnastics. Like, okay, we're in the car because we couldn't go in. You can only bring one kid, and I have
Mhm.
3 more, so we couldn't go into gymnastics and watch. And so we had to wait in the car. Now do that when it's -15 in winter. It's
Mm.
great. But so I would bring some workbooks in the car. I'm like, this is car math. So that's the plan this year. But now picture that when your husband doesn't work Monday to Friday and you're the one taking them to almost all the activities with all the kids with you all the time.
Oof, you are superwoman.
It's
Super mom.
I'm absolutely crazy is what it is. But that makes it hard because we can't double up ever.
Mhm.
And
Mm.
so for them to do all the activities they want to do, it's hard because you have to fit into a schedule where one person can do all of them.
Mhm.
And yeah, that's tricky. So I'm not looking forward to the activity starting again. Not
Well, you
ready.
just have to start to be like, and you're both doing this, and you just break them into twos, right? So
We did a lot of that last year, but they do terribly together. My son bugs her, and
Mhm.
people compare them a lot, which is unfair on him because he's a year and a half younger. And so it works for none of them. She gets bugged, he gets compared, and it's terrible. But that's all they did last year. They were together for almost everything. So this year I said we can't do it. We can't do it. It's not fair on either of you. It sucks for me though, but it's not. So this year we're doubling up differently.
We have a friend who's got three, and they're managing all the schedules, especially in the summer here with the camps and
Yeah.
sports and everything. And I'm like, well, what are you gonna do? The youngest is 4 now. He's gonna maybe start doing some activities. She's like, nope.
Yeah.
We're banning him from activities until he's 7. By then, his brother, who's the oldest, will be driving, and then we can. I'll start outsourcing to my.
Yeah. Because her husband's a firefighter, so
Yeah,
he's
same
gone.
idea. The shift schedule.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so,
It's
yeah.
hard because we homeschool, I feel like we overcompensate with activities. Of
Hmm.
like, okay, this
Mhm.
is your time to be without us, which you never are, with a teacher, coach, whatever, and other adults teaching you things. And with kids that are not homeschoolers necessarily, like it's the time you need that. And so I do want them to do as much as we can possibly fit in and afford, but it's hard. So my 3-year-old is going to do her first activity this year. It's at the exact same time as my daughter, so it works really well. Um, but yeah, it's like you need it. Yeah, you gotta go, you gotta do it, and be away from mom, which he's never done.
So, do you do any other kind of like co-ops or meetups or things like that with other homeschool parents?
We're not very lucky here for secular stuff. Um, the 99% of the homeschoolers here in St. John, New Brunswick, um, are not secular. And
Mm.
so we have maybe 10 families that are secular-ish. And so we have a little co-op, but it's not a co-op like you have in the States where it's all organized and this actual like it looks to me they sound like businesses and companies and so like flawless and it's wild.
Some
It
of them
doesn't
are.
that's not a thing. No, it's so we have a Facebook group and we do like a history fair and a geography fair and science fair through the year and little meetups and stuff like this or like playground meet or whatever. But it's like it's not even once a week, maybe twice a month type of thing. And
Oh,
then people
cool.
end up seeing the same families on their own time. Like it's like little cliques all around basically. But we don't have a big group that does a whole lot. So what we have is already great to be honest. And I don't know if I can handle much more schedule wise anyway. So I love the fairs. I love the little meetups and parties we do. I don't know that I would want more commitment than that anyway. But people here don't. Yeah, I don't think anybody would want to commit to something much more than that.
Hmm.
Yeah, and we have a lot of meetups that are similar to that at parks and
Yeah.
things like that
Yeah.
here
Yeah.
There's a
too.
lot of groups.
So I think that's really it's the loosest. And I know we as homeschoolers don't love to commit to things because the schedule changes all the time, and what's going on in the
And the
day and
mood.
Yep.
the mood. Yeah, so I think the meetups are nice. Is come when you need when you want to,
Yeah, more
leave
loose.
with you. There's no like commitment to teach a subject. That's beyond what I can commit to. So.
It's more chill, but yeah, we don't have any of those. You guys have the parrot partnership. Every time I hear it, I was like, oh my God, like how how amazing.
I mean,
Like
it's pretty big. It's large. It's I think by head count, it's larger. It's the largest school, technically school in our school district.
That's
So
close.
even
That's
bigger
really
than the
close.
high school. So we're pretty lucky. We're pretty fortunate.
But it also takes up a lot of time every
It
week. So it's
does.
like, oh, that's 7 hours a week. And then you have kids in different classes. So it's more than it's maybe
yeah.
like 10 to 12 hours a week,
Yeah.
depending on how much they overlap.
4 days this year.
And
Four to
so
five.
it's
Four
it's
days.
like
Oh wow.
it's a blessing, but it's also like, ooh, that's a lot.
But it's also weird
Yeah.
too
It's
because
hard
it's
because you want to utilize it, right? You want to utilize
Hmm.
all of it and the
yep.
Yeah.
opportunity, but then it's like, okay, but what time do I have left to actually do the rest of the subject? I heard about the spa class and I think she's doing a spa class. Like how cool is
Oh,
that?
she's super excited. And so we purposely like want to pick things that don't have homework. Although that one I think is going to bite us in the butt because she has to go home and perform that spa treatment on someone in the house. And I don't think it's always going to be
Is
as
that a
pleasant
bad
as it
thing
sounds.
though? I don't
It
Well,
depends
know.
on her skill level.
she said last year somebody said that hey, we put eggs on our face or whatever as like a skincare treatment. And I'm like, I don't know, this is all going to be good.
Sweetie, you're with me all day long. Leave that to your mother when she
Yeah.
comes up.
So, but
Yeah, you know what? Leave that for grandma. Let's go see
Yeah.
grandma on the weekend. You can
yeah,
practice your spa.
I like that. I like that. And
Send her
we've
to
used
the
the grandparents.
neighbors.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I think you need a break. I saw you were working so hard. Here's my daughter in her spa treatment.
They'll teach her all the skills she's learned. So you're a bilingual family. We have people out there who maybe you're thinking about doing Duolingo, maybe learning Spanish with English. I was doing French and English. In Canada, you guys have a bilingual nation where you have French and English primary languages. What is that like? How do you approach that? What tools do you use with teaching? I'm primarily using Duolingo right now, and I'm terrible at it. Ariel's been doing it for a year, and she's really good at
Well,
it.
I'm doing Spanish. You're doing Czech.
I'm
That's like
doing
a whole
Czech.
different deal, man.
I chose a tough one.
That's very
Yeah.
specific.
Yes.
I did Norwegian for a while on Duolingo just for fun. It's hard because I think it's different when it's a language you're trying to learn versus a language that you speak. So for us, French is at the same level as English.
Mhm.
So our whole French curriculum is as much meat as our English curriculum, basically. Like we have grammar and we do all those things. So it's very different approach from when it's like, oh, I just want to learn this language. And it takes as much time. So we basically have this extra core subject that is
Mhm.
to me a high priority to hit almost every day. But most of the stuff I use is from France, basically, is what it comes down to. Like, because my family's all there, they ship it all to me. And I use literally like workbooks and programs and curriculums from France. Our math is actually from France too because it's a lot cheaper.
Okay. Okay.
It's very similar to Math with Confidence, but a quarter of the price. Um,
Oh, cool.
so we do math and French for that reason for now. Uh, and handwriting, we do the French way, so I get stuff there too. Yeah, basically a lot of the core stuff is stuff from French. Um, but if I honestly I couldn't even tell you what we would do if we had to learn an extra language because I have that problem too of like what do we use? I've heard good stuff about homeschool languages and it looks fun, but when I look at the French version, I'm like, I don't know about this because this is how I judge a program, right? I look at the language I already speak and I'm
Sure.
like, how are you teaching this?
Okay.
I don't know. So I don't know. My daughter wants to learn Spanish. She thinks she speaks Spanish because she can say 3 words. Um, and it's easier for her because it's so similar to French.
Yeah.
But she's done some Duolingo, and I'm like, it's fun, it's cute, but it doesn't teach you the basics, right? Like the way
Yeah.
you learn in school, the grammar, the whatever, the pronunciation, it just throws you into it and say repeat. So I don't know if in a kid that can amount to I don't know. Rosetta Stone, I've heard have a great app now, and I've been thinking about checking it out because we have it through the library. But I don't know if I can add another language. That was the problem. She wants to do it so bad. It's one of her goals this year. Like I want to learn Spanish and Norwegian and Greek, but you know, um, and it's like when are we adding that in? Like how? So yeah, I haven't even touched on that because I don't know. I don't know. We have enough languages to juggle already.
And so what's I mean, there is no like average day for you because your husband's working sometimes, not working other times. You got the naps, the things. Are there some standard parts of your day that kind of follow the same flow that, like, hey, this is always how we start and then it goes off the rails at this time, but are there some like standard things that you try to do every day?
We try, and I'm trying a new thing where I'm basing our life family schedule on my husband's 8-day rotation. It's the new thing we're trying right now. Instead of doing Monday to Friday to Sunday, where his work is never the same. So if I say, oh, every Tuesday we're doing science, but on one Tuesday he's here, but he's sleeping because he's on a night shift, so we have to be quiet. Whatever, it's chaos. So I'm trying to base it on his rotation of like, okay, this is when you're on a day shift, on a night shift, and this is what we're doing on those days. So that's the plan right now. We'll see how it goes because that means the activities are now the ones that are never at the same spot. Um, but usually in the morning, they're very independent. We've worked hard on that, so they get up and they make their breakfast and they help their sister, the 3-year-old, and do that stuff. And typically on a normal day, they do their chores. So one of them empties the dishwasher, one of them deals with the chickens and the cat. My 3-year-old's job is to clean the shoes because they're never where they should be. Um,
Yep.
and so
Shoes,
they get
that's a
up
big
and they do
deal.
that and get dressed. The problem is they're very slow in the morning. So they like to take an hour to have breakfast. They chit chat. It's very cute. They're sitting in the sun. It's lovely. But then by the time everybody's dressed, it's 11. And you're like, okay, now what? Now it's lunchtime basically. So what are we doing? Um, and it's like, okay, we homeschool for that slow morning. We homeschool so we don't have to be stressed and rush around. So I'm like, okay, sure, have your slow morning, but then what happens after that? Because now time is running out for stuff to get done. So that's the only consistency in our day is that they have their slow breakfast and they do their job and they get dressed if we're lucky. And then from there, it depends on the day. Pick and choose. It's survival, survival or season 47 or whatever season they're on.
So do you have then goals like per week, or in this case per your husband's 8-day
Yeah, for
schedule? Like,
blocks.
how do you kind of keep up with where you're at? Is it like, okay, my goal is to get math 3 times a week, or like what's kind of your bar for
Right now,
yourself?
I do it per day because it's strategically placed for his work. Because, like I said, he does night shift. So on our day 2 and 3, he's going to be sleeping all day. So all day, I know we're going to be like, okay, let's be quiet. We can't be too loud. That is right to sleep. And on day uh 5 and 6, he's also sleeping off the night shift. He's off, but he's still on night shift time. So it's chaos. So I try to place stuff around that of what we're doing. So I have a list per day basically of what I want to hit. So on one day it's gonna be we're doing all about reading, and we're doing that. And then on second day it's gonna be the French reading because we do reading in both languages. So. Um, and then for math, it's like, okay, every day you're hitting this or that. Like I have a list per day and I check it. And then if I mix it up, then I check it on a different day and we switch. It's basically what it is right now. And then we haven't gone back into our extra like science and all those things. But currently they are assigned to a specific day of the week strategically. We will see how that goes. We were on break for a while because my family and his family was visiting from DC and I'm from France, so nothing happened. Um, and now we're getting back into it. But that's the plan is to have I do well when I can check every day of like, yeah, we did that.
Hmm.
It goes well for my brain to be able to check.
Yeah, it's so satisfying.
It really is. You talked a little bit about like chores and responsibilities. We have a podcast that's coming out. I don't know if it's going to be out before or after your episode, but how do you manage responsibility and, chores, and how have you done that? Maybe you could share a little bit with the audience on how you manage that.
We're pretty lucky, or I don't know if it's luck, but they do a lot, and they know that it's not negotiable.
Okay.
And we don't do money for it. I know some families do. We don't. And so they have a job that's assigned, and that's your job every day. It makes it easier. We used to be like, who's doing that today? Who's doing this? And it was always a fight because every other day they wanted something different anyway. It was chaos. So I said, okay, like for the time being, this is your job. So my son is the dishwasher. My daughter, she feeds the chickens and gets the eggs and does the cat litter. Um, the three other issues. And then there's stuff that we all do together. So it's like, okay, we're all clearing the table. We're all doing this. It's cleanup time and we all get to it and do it, which works well. And that's about all I mean, it's already a lot, but that's what we do for now is, and we'll just set the table, but it's something we do all together. But we have that one morning job, which for my eldest is quite a few jobs, that's set every day. So there's no negotiating, there's no reminding them or whatever. It's like, we're doing this. You get up, you empty the dishwasher. That's your job.
Yeah, ours
It makes
ours
it
does the
easier to
same.
not it makes it easier to not switch all the time. Even though he complains through the whole dishwasher, but it's just he's 5. And then he tells you he wants to do what his sister does, but like, no, you wouldn't because she has a bit more than you do at this
Yeah.
point. But yeah, we don't it's not even a subject because it's expected. It's always been like you're part of this family. You're dirtying up the house. You're cleaning it with us. Like I'm not the
Mhm.
one that threw 400 books on the floor. You are, but I'm helping you clean it. But you are helping too.
I've gotten into timers. I ask once, I ask again, and then I ask Google to set a timer. And then if it's not done, I'm going to sell your stuff
I've done that
to
too.
other
Or
families.
it's like
Yeah.
I'm counting to 20, and whatever's left on the floor is not gonna stay on the floor, but it's not gonna stay in the house. And then when I get counting, like, no, stop counting, stop counting. And it's like, dude, you get all stressed. So I count very slowly.
You go into the garage and you actually get the trash bag out and you start opening it up and
Oh, they
oof,
run.
ooh, they start moving real fast.
Yeah.
To be not even throwing it away. It's like I'm gonna give it to a family that will not leave it on the floor. I'm gonna give it to a kid that's gonna use it and not just shove it in the closet and never see it again. And that usually works. Maybe it's a bit mean, I don't know, but no, yeah, it's like and if you could see my house right now, it's not pristine or anything whatsoever. The playroom is the one we've given up on a little bit. Um, if we can walk through it, that's where the standard is. Which right now I can't. Um, but for the main house, like if it's chaos, nothing, it affects all of us, basically, is what it
Mhm.
comes down to. Like if the kitchen is a mess, if there's stuff all over the floor, like, and when the books are everywhere, which is every day, um, it has to be done at the end of the day, or the next morning you wake up into the chaos, and that sets the mood for everyone, especially for me, most of all, because
Mhm.
I can't tackle this day when it looks like this. If the table is a mess, where are we doing schooling? Because this is where we sit down. So I guess we're not doing schooling today. This is what I had stuff happening. So
Well, I
do
always
that.
run into like it's like a glitch in the matrix. It's like I think I just cleaned this up yesterday.
Yeah.
The exact same thing. Like, am I doing this again?
What happened?
Every day under my dining table, it's clean, and then
Mhm.
it's not, and then I clean it again, and then it's like, how are you all making such a mess under the table 400 times a day? How is it possible? Why isn't the food not going in your mouth? Like the 1-year-old, whatever, clearly.
Yeah.
Though she's cleaner than my 5-year-old. But the 5-year-old, it's like the floor is eating more than you. Like, what is going on here? Like,
So
figure it out.
we have a dog, which helps with that. But
The
we
dog
have
strategically
Ah,
places herself
yeah.
right underneath the 5-year-old. Yeah.
But we have also assigned the 5-year-old now to use the little small Bissell vac, and she actually has to clean up after meals because she's the one making all the mess.
we have a broom, so yeah, we after every meal, I have them. One of them randomly will go broom. We'll use the shovel thingy, and then they love vacuuming, so that works. But it's not always vacuum friendly what's on the floor. But yeah, after every meal, it's like, okay, we're cleaning up and picking up and trying to get it back in order. But 2 hours later, it's gone, and it's just
Yeah, those homeschool, the videos or whatever, those
Yeah.
families that have this like pristine homeschool environment. I mean, I've never seen one. I don't have one. It is messy all the time.
They
I
do
mean,
have
it just
older
is.
kids. Maybe they employ kind of a strategic labor force there. I don't
I
know.
think there probably is I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like those houses probably have a lot of stress going around about keeping it clean for the video.
Mhm.
They
Not all
probably
the
do.
time, but when it's video time, it's probably quite stressful about looking pristine in every aspect.
No, I can
Because I
imagine.
see it when I'm trying to take a nice picture for whatever reason, like I turn into this like witch of like, no, don't move, like look cute, smile, let the father I smile, like don't touch your hair. So if I had to do that every day as a job, it's a hard job. I'm gonna say it sounds like a very hard job.
So you talked about chores and things. Are there other aspects of personal responsibility that you're trying to kind of get into your 7-year-old? I mean, is she now starting to kind of take ownership like, hey, today you're gonna have to do handwriting. You can do it whenever you want, but it's on you to do. Are you starting to kind of sow those seeds?
We've been doing a lot of encouraging independence since basically the beginning. So even when she was 5, I would say, yeah, you're taking this and you're doing it. Like go wherever you want, but this has to be done today.
Mhm.
So we've built up to it quite a bit already. She knows to practice her violin every day. I don't particularly care what she practices, but you gotta practice. She has a little checklist, and so it's like a manual thing that you slide to check,
Mm-hmm.
and
Okay.
she likes that. Um, but I more it's hard because like we don't do handwriting every like there's not many things that we do every day, and the things we do I don't want her to do alone anymore. Like it used to be like go get some math done, and now it's like okay, like I should be doing this with you,
Mm.
even though you can. Um, but little things like this, like practice your violin, and she reads a lot, so I don't feel the need to schedule it too much, and I don't want it to be a schedule either. Like I struggle, I want to write it on the list and like read every day, but then I don't want to create that situation where it's like it becomes a thing off the list rather than a pleasure of
Yeah.
just like spontaneously reading. So as long as I see that she's reading, I'm not going to add it to the list. But she's quite good for being independent. We do a lot of like when we do poetry and stuff. Because we do it in both languages. It'll be like okay, like this week you're going to have to write your poem down in your notebook and do the drawing that goes with it because we're going to recite it at the end of the week. So it has to get done at some point. That's the one that she's still sort of learning to remember, and I have to be like, "This is your poem." Um, but I there isn't much more right now I can add into it, but it is something that since the beginning we've tried to make sure that they knew how to work independently. Of like, this is the page you're doing right now. I've explained it to you. I'm going to go make food. You work through the page, and then build up from there. Of like, take this thing and go do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you have to, especially with four children,
Yeah.
but even we've been doing the same even with our two. It's like I can't sit and hold your hand the entire day and trying to
No,
work up
can't
to
do it.
that new personal responsibilities. It's something that's been challenging for us.
It absolutely has.
Well, and at some point they'll be doing it more and more by themselves. Of like, okay, like
That's the
Yeah.
goal.
That's the
this
goal.
is that's the goal. It's the need. It's a goal, but it's also like it
Right.
has to.
Yeah.
So
I
we'll
mean,
see
this
how
is a
that goes.
season. We can't like put this much focus time in forever. Like
Yeah.
we have to, they have to progress, especially as the younger ones then need our attention. And
Mhm.
you're going to be
Mhm.
definitely
Well,
feeling that.
and it's only fair because like those early years, they definitely need that support. Like if you're doing all about reading or you're doing Right Start Math or whatever math program you're using, it does require, some touch there.
Yeah.
My oldest now is old enough to go and do some math problems, having a good example or me doing a quick lesson with her. She can do a worksheet or she can go read a book and she can do her reading and do her word activities and things. And I can be there. But, I used to invest an hour every day with you on these two subjects, and I need to do that with your sister now who's 5 years old, so I need a little bit more time. I'm strategically trying to take the hobbies like the violin and the dance and the all those type of practices, because that tends to be about like 15 minutes each of one of those things, and I can get maybe 45 minutes. And so if you go off and do that, I can then
Yeah.
do the focused hour with your sister, and then we can come back together and do whatever else we're going to do. That's been, I think, been helpful so far, and that's been a way
Some days.
I've gotten around it. But yeah,
What's hard for me is I'm counting on the kid I'm not using to entertain the little ones.
Hmm.
So it can't even be you're doing your violin, we're doing math with your brother. It's like, no, you're playing with your sisters
exactly.
while I'm doing math with your brother. Um, but she fits it in the violin, the dancing. She does dance too.
Mhm.
It works pretty well. But it's the opposite for me. Like I felt like she was too independent last year. I let go too much, and now I'm like, oh, like I know you understood, and I know clearly I can see you understood what you're doing, but like, is it fair at
Mhm.
6 to be sent off this much? So I'm trying to dial it back more right now. Like, we're gonna do more together, even though I feel a bit useless sitting next to you.
Mhm.
Especially for math is the big one. It's like, okay, I'm gonna sit and for French too, because it's pretty straightforward. Like it's explained really well, so like just do it. Um, but I've been trying to be more present with her because of the opposite issue of being like, you're good, go do it. Um, so yeah, working on that. It's hard. There's always see every
Oh,
family has different challenges. It's
Well,
so
and
hard.
there's only one of you
well, yeah,
too,
yeah.
so,
Mm.
you
Well,
know,
and that word you use is presence. And that's been a big thing for me as well. Like you're right. Like sending them out. Like this year, I've done a lot more. Like, hey, go do your stuff. You can go do it. And you're right. I have that kind of the same feeling you have. I feel like, I feel bad just like abandoning
Yeah.
you to do
Mhm.
this. But you need to start being able to. Yeah, I'm kind of torn. Like I know I'm in between this kind of
It's the
transitional
balance
period.
of like letting
Yeah.
go, but also like not for everything and not too
Yeah.
much, but also like it's hard. And my son is my second, he's very needy in this aspect that he will not finish the page if I'm not there the whole time saying,
Mhm.
okay, next one, few
Yes.
more, and we're counting down the whole time. And it has to he has the attention span of a goldfish. Um, and so he needs a lot more hand holding, and I'm trying to build up now to that more independence with him. Like, okay, I'm going to walk away. You know what you're doing. Finish the page. And then I come back 5 minutes later, and he hasn't changed anything. He hasn't done more. He's just like looking at the ceiling. So it's hard. They're very
Yeah.
different.
Very
So
different. Very
I don't know
different.
what number 3 and 4 will be, but yeah. It's a challenge to figure out what makes a completely different kid when you thought you had it all figured out.
Well, and one of the things I tend to think of is even if you put a little bit of time in one-on-one, it's better than, I mean, if they were in school, they would get no time one-on-one.
Almost.
So
A hundred
even if
percent.
you can only do a little bit, like I call that a win,
Yeah.
as much as
Oh, for sure.
we can only ask so much of ourselves. And I'm always trying to tell him, it's okay. You did your best.
I did my
Well, and
And
they're
it's
best.
still
gonna
so
be
young.
okay.
They're still so young, and your daughter too. Like they're still so young.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Like the older they get, the faster they'll learn like stuff that were hard at 8, but when you're 15, it just clicks.
Yeah.
I try to remind myself of like they're so curious, they want to learn about everything, but it doesn't have to be deep and complex. Like learning about dinosaurs doesn't have to be this whole thing. We can just like look at dinosaur books. Like it's okay to let go of that idea of
Mhm.
deep diving all the time because they're so interested in everything, but also they're 5 and 7, and it's
Mhm.
okay to not be super fancy about it and just like surface level is okay sometimes too. Is what I keep on trying a friend of mine that listens to the podcast. I was like, it's okay. Let's just grab some books and color some dinosaurs. Like, it's fine.
Yeah, it's
You have
funny
to
because
memorize anything. I'm not asking you to
what we're
memorize.
encouraged in a lot of curriculums, Blossom River is a great example of this, like go on the rabbit trails, right? Which I do love. I love that
I
curriculum
love the
gives us like
concept.
I love the concept. I love that it gives us permission to kind of go off road. I appreciate all of that. But I think sometimes hearing that makes me think like I need to go on a rabbit trail for everything that interests them.
And you
And
get all the books.
right. And and that interest may be a 5 minute interest, or it may be a 5 day interest or a 5 week interest. I mean, who knows? But I also like we have things we plan to get done. And so I keep reminding myself, it's cool if we only do a little bit here and then we can come back to this. If you're still interested in this next year, maybe we take a little longer. Maybe we dive a little deeper. Every subject can be as surface level as coloring a picture all the way to PhD level. So we could go however deep at whatever age. It's like they're never too old to cover
Yeah,
XYZ subject. I always just try to remind myself because otherwise I want to meet all of
do
their little
everything.
needs and do everything they want to
Yeah,
do. And
can't do everything.
we just can't. I mean, we just can't. So
Yeah,
I love that. Permission to go surface level.
permission, 100%. Go surface level, stay surface level, keep it simple. Like your 401 to learn about space, it doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be deep. It doesn't have to be crazy. Just grab some books, watch a documentary, uh, print some coloring pages, like talk about gravity, jump off the couch. Like it's fine. That's enough. It, yeah,
You
it
got,
doesn't
you
have
got,
to be.
you got the concept for the 5-year-old. Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
They're the ones.
because we are all guilty of that, of like we want to do it all. The second a kid is like, I'm into horses, it's like harsh curriculum. Like it's what we
Right.
do, like printable horse anatomy poster. Like, no, we don't need to do the horse anatomy poster at this stage. Like it's gorgeous. I want to print it, but do we need to do that? Are you gonna, like, is there a point? It
Yeah.
I think we're very influenced too by what we see on Facebook groups and social media, of like
Mhm.
going above and beyond all the time. And
Yeah.
you can't do it for every subject. It's what's hard to. Like we're already juggling so many books. The books for space science, the books for nature study, the books for build your library, the books for this, and then you have just like your math being like, oh, how about this math book? Like I can't do it. I can't do it. I'm juggling too much now. I gotta go on the rabbit trail. I can't do it.
Well, and I think part of it too with us as homeschool parents,
Mhm.
one of the reasons we do it is because we naturally love to learn.
Mhm.
So they're like, "Hey, I'm interested in this." I'm like, "Well, I would like to know about that too," right? And so
It becomes
we
your whole
want to,
personality now. It's like we're all about that.
right? We're all about that. So let's do it. Let's learn as much as we can. Yeah, let's go into it. I'll find a Girl Scout badge. It goes with that. I'm like, I just start doing this.
And there's
So
an element there too of like, well, what if this is the thing? What if this is the
right.
thing that our
What if
children
it's
will
the
want to?
one? What if
What's the
it's the
one?
thing
Yeah.
that's gonna, yeah.
When they say back later, well, I started getting interested in horses at 7 years old, and that's when I knew I wanted to be a vet.
If
And
it wasn't for that anatomy poster that my mom got me for the horses, I don't know if I would have been here.
but there's so much pressure, right? Because we have all this risk that we've taken on where we are in charge of their whole education. We can't just say, oh, well, I don't know, the school did XYZ. I wasn't involved.
Yeah.
Like we
Well, and
are
then
the
I feel
school.
like we have to be accountable of like
Yeah.
giving it all to justify that we're not sending them to the precious public school that we're
Yeah.
indirectly criticizing by not using.
Yeah.
And it's
Mhm.
like, no, I just like my chill days. School sounds stressful to me. Like my kid was
Yeah.
in preschool. I was so relieved when it was vacation time and I didn't have to make her a snack. It was just a snack, but it was overwhelming. We have to be out of the house that early with everyone, and you have to have a snack, and it has to be healthy, or I feel like I'm being judged. Some days I wouldn't send her because I wasn't happy with what I had to put in her snack, thinking, what is the teacher going to think? So, so, like, school sounds so stressful. They have camp next week, full day. I was like, oh my goodness, how are we going to do this? Like, you have to be there at 9. We're not awake at 9. We're not morning people. So it's school sounds harder to me sometimes. Like so much politics and just like PTA and all this stuff. It sounds exhausting.
Yeah, to us too. And it sounds like something that we would still have to put in all this effort to help them with their homework or nag them to do their homework or whatever. But then we only got
Without
like
having the
half the story.
control of what they're actually doing.
You don't have any control and you don't know what instructions they were given. You get the version that comes back to you. Because we have this happen, at camps and stuff. And we've had, even with some of the classes of the parent partnership, our daughter will come home and say, well, Mrs. So-and-so said this is what I need to do. And we're like, did that really happen? Luckily, I'm able to like check with this teacher. She's like, no, I said to color a picture. I didn't say to do a diorama or whatever. So I feel like too, when stuff comes home from school, how would we even, we're only operating with half the information. We still have to do all of this work. And we only have,
And we have unreliable narrators.
yeah, well, and we only have such a limited time with our kiddos. That's one of the reasons why we love homeschools. We just get all this
Yeah.
time with our kids. Like no one can say we can't have all this time with our kids. They're our kids. We can have them as much as we want.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And
But people are like, oh, you gotta cut the cords. Like, no, but I enjoy them. Like,
Mhm.
people are relief when it's back to school, and it's like I have them all year long. Like, I'm never without them, and they drive me crazy sometimes. Don't get me wrong, but
oh, totally.
Oh yeah.
at the end of the day, I'm glad I couldn't really imagine it in a different way. Like, they're here. They're not in nuisance. They're just doing their thing, and they
Mhm.
Mhm.
play all day. Most of the day, if I didn't call them to do learning, they just play outside, inside, anywhere. They're busy. They're like, oh, bye, mom. We're doing our thing. They're very creative, making up the craziest stories. It's hard to interrupt the play. Actually, is my big problem of like, I want you to have this playtime. That's the reason we're doing this. One of the reasons for you to have this childhood, this time to play and do your thing. And then like, it's time to do math. And they're being so creative. It's hard to be like, okay, we gotta stop now. But yeah, it's hard.
Absolutely. So speaking of which, of like the home and managing all these things, do you have anything in your house that you can't live without, like crates or certain types of pencils or whatnot? What is that go-to thing that saves you every day?
I laughed at that question on your form because I had no idea what those pencils are. I still don't understand what the big deal is with that
Ty,
brand that you wrote down. I was like,
the
what are those?
Ticonderoga pencil. It's a
That's a hard
legendary.
name. I randomly saw a video later on like or somebody recommending homeschool. Oh no, a teacher saying this is what we want when we ask up, and I was like, oh, those are the crayons. I have no idea what they are.
It's like a
Um,
standard,
It's
it's a
like a
standard yellow
well, there
pencil.
was a
we don't
Fort
have. I
Ticon,
checked.
yeah,
I
Fort
checked this week if
Ticonderoga.
we had them here, but I didn't see them.
Okay.
We don't have any. We don't have any crates here, so that solves it because they all come from the States and the shipping is outrageous. Um, so no crates, but I don't know. I like having quality art material. I think is one thing that I'm anal about. Um, of like having good crayons and stuff and good markers. Even though we don't do enough art whatsoever. Um, um, and then I don't know if there's stuff that we can't live without. What do we use all the time? We have story boxes, a bit like the Yodo, but it's a French one that does exist here and has English content, but not as much. But it's called the Looney that they listen to a whole lot, and it's done a whole lot of rabbit trails. My daughter's been obsessed with Greek mythology for almost 2 years now because of it, and like she
Oh,
knows
wow.
more than most adults on the subject. It's wild.
That's awesome.
Um, and we only do French on the Looney, so it's French content only. But they've learned so much about like animals and mythology and Egyptian, ancient Egypt and prehistory. Like we have all those stories on it that we use a lot, and I strategically pick new stories to add onto it, being like they're going to learn stuff from this. Now she wants to be a vet because she has vet stories on it. Um, so that one I say is they've learned so much from it. It's basically my sub teacher so much. It's incredible how much they've retained from listening to it. But for material, I don't know if we have, yeah, I don't know if we have anything specific. We use a lot of French stuff there too, is what's tricky because we do handwriting the French way, which is very different from the American way. But in
Okay.
Okay,
France, you have a
I'm curious.
fountain. Yeah, in France, when you turn 6 and you enter first grade, you use a fountain pen from the beginning
What?
to the end of high school. Virtually is the norm. It's the thing that everybody uses because we only write in cursive. You're not allowed to not write in cursive in school until you're in, I think in middle school to get more chill. But in elementary school, you're not allowed to not write in cursive. That's how we learn to write. We don't write like print. And we start with small lines, much smaller. So when I see notebooks here that have like those massive lines, my daughter doesn't know what to do with them because it's like, how big is my letter supposed to be? Because we write pretty small from the beginning. And so all the notebooks here don't really work for that. Uh,
Wow.
and and so I get my notebook to France. So it sounds so stupid to say it's a notebook, but for notebooks that she's actually writing to her handwriting, her dictations, whatever, copy work, we use French notebooks because I've tried last year to get this gorgeous school nest first grade, feels so good notebook. It's all the rage, and it was horrendous because she was writing gigantic letters that I don't understand what we're expecting kids to make a perfect O when it's this big. Um, and so yeah, my French notebooks are high on the list. My mom just brought some. Actually, she just asked me, "Do you need more? It's back to school sales. Do you need more stuff?" I need more notebooks. But yeah,
Really interesting.
the it's very different when you go from one to another, and it's hard for me to let go of that. To me, that's the norm. So we do handwriting the French because I'm like, it makes more sense to me.
So are you
Makes
starting
it a
them
lot
all
more
out with their
complicated
fountain
for me.
pens?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. So my
Mhm.
daughter only writes. We started a little bit with my son this year, but he's only 5.5, so it's like I don't see a big rush. But he's sort of starting to do more specific tracing. But yeah, she's on her third fountain pen actually because the first two
Wow.
broke. Um,
Wow.
and, and yeah, but it's like I don't know what exists here, but it's the ink is erasable. Like we have special pens that have an eraser and something to rewrite over it on the other side. And so
Hmm.
you erase when you make a mistake and you can write over it again.
Oh,
And
cool.
yeah, so no, but it's more the sizing that's the biggest difference for me is having lines that are not huge when you're in first grade somehow. Even in third grade, it's huge. It's huge. I don't understand.
Yeah, whenever our daughter writes anything, it's
Yeah.
giant. And she tries to write postcards when we're traveling. I'm like, no, honey. I mean, the letters gotta be a lot
Yeah.
smaller.
Is there any advice you have? Such a wonderful story. Do you have any advice? Maybe there's a family out there who's looking to homeschool. They're starting maybe 4-year-old or a 5-year-old. What wisdom can you impart onto them?
I don't know if I have any wisdom, but
You have plenty of wisdom.
the surface level thing, I guess, is a big one. Of like, it's okay to be surface level. It's okay to not dive deep. It's okay to just keep it basic and just fill the interest for the time being, especially when they're young. Um, and I don't know if it's okay, but I was gonna say it's okay to have all the curriculums and try them all and look
Mhm.
at them all and switch all the time. But I don't know if that's okay. I don't know if it's. I don't know if
Well,
I should be
well, I don't
advising
think
that.
anyone says it's not okay. I
Yeah.
think it's all about how much it stresses you and your kids,
Yep.
Yeah,
right? If you love to have, I mean, it would be like having tons of reference books to look at. If you're using them like that, now if you're trying to do them all and it stresses you and your whole family out, then no, that would be bad. But yeah, so I think it's a curriculum moderation thing. If it helps
yeah,
jog ideas or gives you something to pull from for the few weeks that your kid's really interested in that one subject, then yeah,
Mhm.
awesome.
that's fine. I guess that's the big thing is like we get so easily influenced, and you think you're gonna love something because your friend loved it so much, and it's okay if you don't. It like I it like it might work for your friend, it might work for your neighbor or whatever, but maybe it doesn't work for you, and that's fine. Like you're not offending anyone if you don't like what they use. And also like to try not to be too influenced by everyone out there. It's really hard. It's really hard. Everybody loves what they do. They're so passionate and they're trying to be like, yeah, this is great. Check it out. And you don't have to. You don't have to do everything. You don't have to be like everybody else. Just find the right one for you.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I think those are great words. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Take it easy.
there's a misconception too that there's that one perfect curriculum out
Yeah.
there for you.
No.
Like, oh, if that one didn't, well, something else, and oh, it's just perfect. And I don't know that any of them are perfect for anyone because homeschooling and our kids, it's also individual. That like
Yeah.
it's
That or the
unreasonable.
idea that you're going to use the same thing the whole time. I see
Yeah.
people that have been using the same for like years, and it's like, how do you just pick one thing and commit to it? Like, I'm very envious about it. Like, you just picked one and you went with it and you've never looked elsewhere. Like, wow, that's skills. I don't have that skill. I'm like a squirrel of like, ooh, this is shiny. I'm gonna look at it. I'm gonna buy it. Like, thankfully, we between my friends, we all have a lot of different stuff, so we get to actually look at them. And then if like, okay, I'm gonna use this, then I'll purchase it. But let me see what it actually looks like because I can't own everything. So that works well. I've been like, tell me about it. You actually have it in your hands. But yeah, um, there's so many and they're all pretty. It's an addiction. It's a problem. Some people have a lot of shoes. Okay. Some people have a lot of shoes. I don't have a lot of shoes. I do have a lot of curriculum.
Love it.
Well, on that note, thank you, Lena, for your time, and it's been so
You're
fun to
welcome.
talk to you.
I appreciate it.
Thanks so much for joining us today and making us a part of your homeschool journey. Please engage with us on social media. Join our Homeschool Together podcast group on Facebook and find us at Homeschool Together Podcast on Instagram. We'd love to hear your feedback, questions, and recommendations. Until next time.
Happy homeschooling!